Content creation only works if you're consistent, and if you're a business owner or a content creator, you already know that there are some things you have to do and there are systems you have to put in place in order for you to be consistent. So if you're looking for advice and tips that you would need in order for you to build consistent content creation practices, then this video is for you. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Gloria, and let's get to it. The very first thing you have to understand about consistency is what exactly does consistency mean? Because a lot of the times when you're talking about consistency, a lot of us just think of one side of consistency, which is frequency. Now, frequency essentially is the amount of times you actually show up when you're creating content, so the number of times you post. So if you're posting maybe 2 times a week, that is your frequency of posting, and a lot of us confuse that with consistency. But there are so many different versions of consistency, and when it comes to content creation, the first version is frequency, so the number of times you actually post within a specific period of time. And then we also have the consistency level of expectations that you've set. So that essentially is your cadence and the way your audience should expect to be hearing from you, which will bubble down to the quality of content you're doing, as well as also the level of production you're producing with your content. And that's also something you have to be consistent on, as well as being consistent with the messaging. So whatever value or whatever the brand you are creating content for is required to stand on the information, the narrative, as well as the point of view that you want to spread across through your content. It also has to remain the same. You have to know how to make sure that you are consistent in repeating the same narrative over and over again until people associate that particular narrative or that particular thing to your brand through your content creation. The very first piece of advice that I would give you as a content creator who's planning to be consistent is you need to plan your content around your lifestyle. Now, a lot of us do not actually account for this, but content creation, especially if you're doing video content creation, it actually requires a lot of time. And when you sit down and analyze the load of work that content creation will require you to have, a lot of the times you need to factor in the lifestyle you're currently living and figure out what needs to be prioritized more so that you can have enough time for you to do the shooting, the idea generation, as well as the editing, the filming, all this work that goes inside content creation. And so the first thing that I would want you to consider is how much free time do you actually have? Because a lot of us do not assess the free times we have in our hands, and therefore we end up deprioritizing content creation and you don't end up staying consistent because you do not have enough time for you to actually do the work that is required for you to create that content, be it video production or even doing the copywriting side of content creation. You really need to figure out how much free time do you have in your hands and how can you use this time or allocate this time towards your content creation endeavors so that you're able to be consistent in the content that you're creating. And then the second thing that you need to do on this area is you need to become realistic. You need to realistically ask yourself and realistically review and see how much can you actually carry. Because a lot of us think that content creation is just as easy as taking your phone, recording, and then posting. No, there's a lot that goes behind the strategy. There's a lot that goes behind which platforms you're going to be on. The algorithms, these are things that you need to learn about. There's optimization and all the work that goes behind content creation that a lot of us do not account for. So you need to be realistic enough and ask yourself, can you realistically take on the work that is required of you to be a consistent content creator? Because you have to come up with a way of production, you have to come up with the level of quality that you want to be producing in your content, and you also have to figure out how you are going to ensure that this work that you're doing of content creation is not interfering with what is putting food on your table before the content creation that you're doing starts paying you. The second piece of advice I would give to anyone who's trying to become a consistent content creator is that you need to adapt the habit of batch creation. Now, in order for you to understand what batch creation is, let me first explain to you what batch creating actually is. Now, What we call a batch essentially is you cumulatively or collectively doing one thing and achieving it before you move on to the next thing. Think of it in terms of you accumulating all the things that are related to this one task and then doing it, and then doing the next piece of action that is required of the next task that you're supposed to do. In this instance, it's content creation. And as we all know, when you're creating content, you have to generate ideas, you have to research and validate your ideas, you have to figure out what's going to be the title. If it's on social media, you have to create the graphics that are going to accompany that particular post. You have to think about captioning and the keywords, as well as what you're going to do in order for you to build engagement. You also have to think about you streamlining the process of production, and all of this requires you to do a bit of work. So if you want to actually be consistent, you have to make batch content creation like something you fall back to every single time you're creating content, because realistically we all have lives to live, and a lot of the times you will get emergencies, some of us get sick, and you're not realistically able to create content for that particular period of time that you're going through that hard time. And so the first thing about batch creation is that you need to identify what exactly is your process of content creation. What is the step-by-step process you follow to create a piece of content, and what are these activities that you can actually batch together. And I did do a video talking about how to actually come up with a content strategy, or rather how to build a content process that actually is streamlined. If you haven't watched that video, I am definitely going to include it up here for you to go and watch it, so that you can learn how to batch or rather how you can streamline your content production process so that you're able to start batch creating. The second thing about batch content creation is that you need to be okay with time blocking. Now, a lot of us need to learn time management, and discipline comes from you following through with the task that you've assigned for yourself in your processes and all the things that you're doing. In this instance, as a content creator, you need to time block time during the week where you're going to do the different batches that are required for you to do content production. For example, when you shoot a video like what I'm doing currently, I also have to edit it and I have to schedule it. So that means I have to batch as much content as possible, so that when I'm sitting to edit content, or when I'm sitting to edit videos, I'm not just editing one video, I'm editing 2 or 3 videos that are going to be created over a period of like three times that I'm supposed to be posting for that particular social media platform that I'm on. And so you also need to adopt this way of thinking and this way of moving if you want to be consistent in your content creation, because it saves you a lot of energy and you're able to get the tasks that you necessarily don't like done, especially if you cannot afford to get help. And then the third thing that goes into batch content creation, create templates. Guys, it makes your work so much easier when it comes to editing and when it comes to posting social media graphics, because when you have a consistent design, it also does amplify your brand, and it also builds that level of recognition when people see your content, and they will be able to consciously pinpoint, this is a post by so and so, this is a post by Gloria, this is definitely how Gloria edits. And so in order for you to build that level of awareness and also stay consistent, you need to learn the art of creating templates. And these templates are going to be for the things you repeatedly do. For example, in all my videos, you guys might have noticed that I always use the same design when it comes to my overlays, as well as the text graphics that I usually put when I'm pinpointing or when I'm describing and explaining a specific point in my videos, kind of like what you just saw the past few seconds. So you need to create these templates because it makes it easier and it makes it really fast for you to churn out all the pieces of things that, all the pieces of the puzzle that you have to put in your videos or in your content, so that you can be able to build brand recognition as well as become faster in all the actions that you're partaking for you to create the content that you're going to be posting on these social media platforms you're on. The next piece of advice that I would give you is that you need to build your content creation system. And in order for you to build your content creation systems, you need to identify your standard operating procedure, or rather the process that you follow to create content, and then figure out which tools, which technical tools that you can adopt and use in order for you to produce the content that you want to be producing. So let me walk you through what that actually looks like. Now, in order for you to build a system, you first need to identify the process that you take in order for you to move from point A, which is idea generation, to point B, where you have a fully fledged content piece that you can share on social media. So in order for you to get to that point, you have to identify what your process looks like, whether that is on the side of video content creation or on the side of copywritten content or even audio content creation. You have to figure out what is the step-by-step process you follow so that you can also see which tools can you use where. For example, when you're building your content calendar, that is all on idea generation. What specific tools can you adopt in that particular area for you to be able to consolidate all the content ideas that you're coming up with, the ones that you've written on your notebooks, the ones that you've picked up while you are doing your business or while you're running your day and running errands, the ideas that came to you while you're in your shower, all these scattered content pieces, you need a place to brain dump them. And a good place that I would actually recommend for you to begin with is actually having a project management tool like ClickUp. Now, I have been using ClickUp for the past 2-3 years in running both my business and my content creation system, and this is where I actually build my content creation system around, because ClickUp really gives you colorful Kanban boards, as well as a good place for you to brain dump all the ideas that you created based on what you actually want to do with that particular side or that particular process of your content creation. And if you don't have a ClickUp account yet, it is definitely free for you to create one. I am going to include a link in the description for you to get your account. And no, this is not a sponsored post. I really just enjoy using ClickUp, and I believe that it's going to help you in your process of building your content creation system. And then the second thing that you're going to look into definitely is going to be how long it takes for you to actually complete the content creation workload. And here, what that means is time management. And when you're talking about time management, I definitely have to throw in a tool in there, which is essentially going to be Google Calendar. I am a lover of the Google Workspace because I can access it from anywhere. That is the first amazing thing. And then the second thing, it's free. As long as I have a Google account, a free Google account, I can be able to have access to the Google Calendar, and I can be able to use it to time manage myself, or rather to keep myself accountable for my time in order for me to do all the work that is required for me to churn out the content that I'm supposed to churn out for the social media platforms that I'm on. And then the third thing when it comes to building your content creation system is that you need to learn to prioritize what is essential and what is important for your content creation process at that particular season in your content creation life. So if you are currently building, you definitely need to prioritize a lot more of content creation and you churning out new pieces of content, because here you're trying to learn if you really are a good content creator or not, and as well as training yourself to actually become a content creator. And there's so much I can tell you about content creation when it comes to prioritization, but if you do have any questions, make sure to let me know in the comment section, and I will definitely answer those questions for you in a video format or even in the comment section. The next piece of advice that I would give you is that you need to learn to adopt the process of automating your posts going live. Most of the social media platforms that we use usually have an in-house tool or even out third-party tools that you can use to schedule out content to go live without you interfering with anything. You just need to pick a time, you need to schedule the post, add the necessary information, and then these tools will automatically post that particular post for you. Now, there are two ways to actually go about this. And the first way to go about this is by using the free in-platform capabilities of doing the automatic scheduling. If you go to Instagram, for example, and you're a creator on Instagram, you will be able to find that particular option for you to schedule out posts. A lot of us do not know that this exists, but it actually takes away the stress or the mental load for you to physically be present to actually post out that content for yourself when you are creating this content and you're trying to stay consistent. So you can leverage this particular.
You just got to make a decision that you're back right now.
You'll be posting automatically on Instagram, for example. But we also have a platform like TikTok, which does not have in-house scheduling capabilities. Therefore, you can use a third-party tool, and in this particular instance, I would highly recommend using Metrical. I have personally tested that particular platform. I have been using it for a while, since 2022, and I've been able to see that this tool is actually very efficient, especially when it comes to data tracking and content analytics, and you're trying to figure out what is working, what is not working, what's good for your platform and what's not good for your platform. But aside from that, it also allows you to automatically schedule TikToks that go live without you necessarily being there. You also have to have an account with Metrical, and I am going to also include the Metrical link in my description down below, and you can create a free account and get started, test out its features and see if this is something that you do want to include in your content production workflow. The next piece of advice that I would give you is that you need to reduce the friction between you taking the action of content creation and you posting. Now, in order for you to do that, you need to figure out where the friction actually exists when it comes to you creating content. Now, for most of us, especially when we who are video content creators, a lot of the friction comes in behind the scenes production, because you have to think about pulling up your light, setting up where you're gonna be filming, figuring out the scripts, figuring out everything and all the angles that you're gonna include in that particular video. And a lot of the times, because we have a lot of decisions to make, we end up having this friction and end up not creating content as well because of this particular friction. And so the first thing that I would need you to do for yourself, if you want to be consistent in video production, if you're a video content creator, is that you need to set up your production space. So that means if you have the ability to actually have a space, a dedicated section in where you live, or a dedicated place where you're gonna be having everything set up and ready for you, your work is just to enter, set up your camera, and then start recording, I would highly recommend you actually set that up. Now, if you're not a video content creator and you're more towards the side of audio or even copywritten content, then what you need to do is you need to set up where you are actually going to be doing the copywriting or the audio production. So that means you have to set up your laptop, if it's your laptop you're using, or your tablet, and you have to ensure that you have everything ready. That is your journal, your idea bank, as well as what you will be posting about. So in order for you to do that, you definitely need to have a set up place or a setup template that you're going to be using. For me, in this instance, I usually use Notion, because Notion is a really great database tool for my content production in the copywritten sections. So because I don't use Google Docs, I really love using Notion for that particular area. Now, with that being said, I'm really hoping that you guys found this YouTube video to be helpful. If you did, then make sure to give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I definitely would like to hear your thoughts on the advice that I've given you about content creation. Let me know which one was your favorite in the comment section down below. But up to that point, I'm really hoping that you guys have enjoyed this video. But that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching until the end. And as always, I will see you in the next one.